Good morning, River Church. How we doing? Hey, Ken and Leah, those three songs wrapped together like you did right there was unbelievable. Can you just thank them for doing that? Thank you. That was awesome. They're musical. I'm not. I don't know how you did it, but it was awesome. It was great. Hey, I'm so glad you're here this morning. If you have a Bible, I hope you do. Grab it. If you don't, there's some right in front of you, in the chair in front of you. You can turn to Matthew. We are finding hope, going through the Gospel of Matthew a little bit at a time, and we're still in the middle of a bit of the Christmas story, which seems totally weird now that it's September. It's just this commercial before in a few months when we do that full on, but we're just baby stepping our way through the Gospel of Matthew to find hope, to follow Jesus, and Matthew's our guide, sharing with us what Jesus is all about and what he's up to, and we're going to learn so many lessons this morning from Mary and Joseph and the wise men that I think we can apply to our lives, no matter where we are on our spiritual journey. So here we go. By the way, if you've missed any of these in the recent weeks, to get some historical background on it, you can go online and watch if you want to and catch up to speed on what's happening. But I'm not going to keep going over that every single week. You can go watch that. But I have discovered over the years that when you're not all in, some things happen. So when you're not all in any category of your life, I mean, it's not much fun when you're not all in. You can get really bored pretty fast when you're not all in. You all of a sudden get grumpy, actually, when you're not all in. You might start showing up late or leaving early when you're not all in. Why? Because your whole heart's not in it. You're not fully there. So you start to check out. You start to if you're not all in. And it comes in a whole number of areas in our lives. From our home life, if you're not all in there, well, everybody feels it and knows it, and relationally, it gets real tough. Around your work situation, that can be tough. If you're not all in at your work situation, then you start to, you literally probably start to show up late if you can in your job and leave early if you can in your job, and you're just not all there. Or even in your leisure activities, even when you're having fun, if you're not having fun doing whatever that is, you don't want to pay the money or take the time or do that, and you start to check out. You may even decide to come home early because of that. But this is especially true in sports. And if you're into athletics or sports or have played ever in your life or playing now, you know if you're not all in, things happen. And especially in contact sports. I played soccer in high school, and I'll never forget, it's still in my mind. I can't believe it is. You'll understand in a minute why. But there was if you know soccer or not, but I'm going to catch up to speed really fast. We try and get the ball in the back of the net to score goals. And so the ball's going down the side, and I was a forward. I was trying to score goals, and a cross from the ball came in. Somebody kicked it into the middle in front of the goal, and I dove to try and head it into the goal. But I wasn't all in. I hesitated. So when you hesitate and you're not all in, bad things happen. So I totally missed the ball and hit a kid's knee. And this is way before, I can't even say it because I'm forgetting, because it's, concussion protocol, which is part of my problem today, is probably, but you get your bell rung, and I think I was knocked out for a little short period of time, and they walked me off the field, and that's about all you did back then, which probably explains a lot today, and if I misspeak, I'm blaming it on that. But there are many more of those besides that in soccer when you go up and heads together and all sorts of things. But here's the deal. I remember, it's like it was yesterday, that I didn't go after it full out. I wasn't all in. If I would have been all in, I might have got contact on the ball, and who knows where the ball would have gone. It might have been great news. But because you hesitate in any category of your life and you're not all in, it affects you. It affects the people around you, no matter what the category. But when you are all in, man, your love quotient goes up, your kindness comes out, your gentleness, you're a blessing to others. You're all of a sudden lining yourself up to be a legacy in your life in different categories because you're all in, no matter what it is. Now, it could be a short season of your life where you're all in there, but it's just a season. College students, it could be there. High school students could be there. Could be a job that you have for a short period of time where this isn't going to be it forever, but you're all in anyway. You're faithful there anyway. And so you're doing that. And this is never more true than here at River Church too. I didn't even intend to rhyme that, but it did. At River Church, we need you to be all in. And so we're going to learn some lessons from the wise men and Mary and Joseph about them being all in. Because you can't even imagine in your mind if they weren't all in. What if Mary said, no, I'm not doing this? What if Joseph said, nope, I'm not listening to the angels or those dreams at nighttime? What if the wise men said, no, we're not going to follow that star? I mean, you can't imagine what history would be rewritten if they would have said for a moment, we're not all in. But they were all in, so we're going to learn from their lives. And then, man, your joy goes off the charts when you're all in a moment. I got to be honest with you. Driving today to here, it's been a long week. We had a memorial service, and many of you were here for that. And it's been a little bit tiring and things going on, just physically and mentally and all that kind of thing. But man, those 3 songs we just sang and just refocusing around Jesus and all that, it's like, man, I'm all in. I'm all in. Let's go. Let's do it again. Let's go. And that's what coming to church does for me oftentimes, is even in a moment where I'm like, I'm hesitating, and then other things happen, and even this morning, it's like, I'm all in. Let's go. And so turn to Matthew chapter 2. Starting in verse 11, it seems weird. It's in the middle of the subtitles, but I'm messing with you already with throwing Christmas time anyway. So let's just go to verse 11. And we'll catch up with the story. Obviously, Jesus has been born. He is now a toddler. It's messing with your manger scenes because the wise men are not present in those manger scenes because Jesus would have been under 2, but probably over 1. So he's a toddler now. He might have been saying some words. He's mobile. Mary and Joseph are containing him, but I'll bet he had some really sweet wooden toys that Joseph would have made for him. That would have been cool as a carpenter. So anyway, verse 11, on coming to the house, it's now a house. It's now a house. Take note. It's not a manger or an inn or something. It's a house. They saw the child. He's not a baby anymore. He's a child. With his mother Mary, and they bowed down and they worshiped him. I love God. He has a sense of humor, I think. I'd start to daydream and I think, like, what did that look like? He's not a baby. He's a toddler. They bow down and worship the toddler. Anybody have a toddler? Anybody seen a toddler? Because you just know, like, what did that look like? What did Jesus do? Did he play with their stuff that they were wearing? Did he mess with the gifts they brought? I mean, what did he say a word? I don't know, but it changes your perspective, doesn't it? It's not just, he wasn't just sitting there. He could have been moving around, and they bowed down and they worshiped him, the toddler Jesus. Then they opened their treasures and presented him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Verse 12, and having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod. Because Herod had lied to them and said he wanted to worship the baby Jesus, or the toddler Jesus, but he didn't. He wanted to kill him because he was threatened by a new king in town. And they returned to their country by another route. They were probably from Persia, Babylon area, so they would have taken a different route to get home, so they went there safely because God told them to. Verse 13, when they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up," he said, "take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod, and so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." We're going to jump right in really fast because we're going to end up celebrating communion, and it's God's timing that we would do it this morning after this scripture. I'll tell you why at the end. But here we go. Number one, just some principles to live by. I'm just looking at the wise men, looking at Mary and Joseph, gleaning principles from their lives that we can all live by. Number one is give yourself away. Give yourself away. I mean, look at this. They longed, these wise men longed to worship Jesus. They followed a star divinely that was moving. I don't know if it was a new star. We don't know if it was an angel. We don't know what that was. But they followed this star that was moving, because stars don't move. We move. They don't. So this star is moving, though. It took them all the way to Jesus. And so for them to worship now baby Jesus. Verse 11, on coming to the house, they saw the child who was with the mother Mary. And they bowed down and they worshiped him, and they opened their treasures, presented him with gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The wise men gave Mary and Joseph valuable, listen closely, and practical gifts as a response to their worship. So they came, and there's been a lot of written stuff out there that maybe you've heard about the symbolism around those three gifts. We don't know if there's symbolism attached to them or not, but it's kind of fun to think about a little bit. These were standard gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, that you would give to a king, or you'd give to some sort of deity during that time period. So that's not unusual. What might be unusual, though, is maybe the symbolism attached to it. You mean gold, obviously precious metal, valuable. You can exchange that to buy some things, to get some things. That's probably how their trip to Egypt was financed. So God's timing is absolutely perfect. Like, they were poor. We know that. They had already made a sacrifice from Bethlehem to Jerusalem to go to the temple to offer sacrifice. But before the wise men showed up, and all they could afford is a little pigeon. They couldn't afford a bigger animal. So we already know that they were super poor, Mary and Joseph, starting out this little family with Jesus. And so all of a sudden now it's like well, I don't want to jump ahead. I won't get there yet. Almost did. Okay, so gold, there it is. Frankincense. It's a perfume. It has healing properties. I mean, now it's pretty awesome. I have some frankincense right here. I don't know if you've ever smelled frankincense before. For those of you who haven't, I'm going to leave it up here for after the service. You want to come up and smell? Because it's strong. And that's probably what's for focus and to keep you focused. And some say be relaxed. I don't know if I get relaxed by smelling this. I wake up from smelling this. But it's a perfume that that now gets bottled and sold because it has some properties, some healing and perfume to it that can help. And then we have myrrh. It's anointing oil. If you remember, myrrh was involved in embalming, if you will, Jesus' body after he came off the cross, before he was put into the tomb. Joseph of Arimathea and all preparations and women involved were embalmed, and myrrh was part of that whole process. So the symbolism around these three things that some people talk about is, gold will be a symbol of divinity. It's the highest value. Frankincense would be attached to holiness or righteousness. And myrrh would be attached to suffering. And those three things, of course, Jesus went through all of that. His divinity coming to earth and his holiness, living a perfect life, and he suffered to die on a cross for the forgiveness of sins, and he was the Messiah. And so they bring these gifts, and the heart response of these wise men was to worship Jesus first, and they had the gifts in tow. And the response of their worship to Jesus was to give something away to the family. So it was customary and hospitable, but beyond that, it's like that there's some value attached to these things that they give to the family for Jesus, because they realize that this is the Messiah, as much as they could comprehend that. As much as these wise men who were Gentiles from a far-off country could fully comprehend that, but they came to indeed worship him with what they knew at the time. Now, the church in America has gotten a bad rap about talking about money. And I'm not afraid to talk about money, because Jesus talks a lot about money. He talks a lot about our hearts and where our hearts are, and where our hearts are is where our treasure is, and what's going on in your heart is a representation of where your treasure, what you worship. And these wise men, man, they're a model for us of showing up divinely, following whatever God would put in their way. Stars was their deal, their communication source, to get to Jesus, to worship Jesus. And they wanted to worship and give some monetary value to the family, Jesus' family. But they didn't know they were going to go to Egypt. They're just going as a response of worship. They're giving their resources away to worship Jesus. And boy, we ought to be doing the same thing, shouldn't we? I mean, your worship ought to not just be come on Sunday mornings and sing some really cool songs and arrangements, but it should be to give a part of the things that hold on to you maybe the most in our materialistic America, me first deal. You ought to be able to say, no, I'm going to give some of that away. It's not going to control me. I want to give it away for kingdom purposes, for the king. And the wise men did that. Listen, the gospel of Jesus Christ has a grip on your wallet if you're really worshiping Jesus. Say that again. The gospel of Jesus, the good news of Jesus and him coming for us, should have a grip on all of your life, not just part of your life. That's why we ought to be all in. because it's amazing how much freedom you actually have. You think you have freedom when you hold on. You actually have more freedom when you give away, because it's more blessed to give than receive, Jesus would say later on in Matthew. And so it's amazing how freed up we are. But in our world that's so, don't talk about money, because, that everybody does that. And I get it. I totally get it. I get it if you're new to the church. I get it if you're new to Christianity. I get it. Like that's the persona of the church and pastors and all that kind of thing. And then they attach some sort of weird thing, like if you give this, then you're going to get that, and that's not true. But on the other hand, it's like, no. Jesus goes for the heart every single time. He always does. I've already said it in weeks past. It's inconvenient. Jesus always talks about stuff. It's like, why'd you have to talk about that, Jesus? Why'd you have to do that? Why'd you have to bring that up in my life again? But he does that. Why? Because he wants us to give him everything. He wants 100% actually. He doesn't just want a percentage. So these wise men, they speaking of being wise in their worship back to Jesus, it's just unbelievable to me how they do that. So I would encourage you to pray. Let's get practical, to pray about what you're giving to our church. And of course, there's operational expenses and there's outreach expenses, and that's just true of every church. And so why wouldn't we talk about it? And we want to live with integrity and tell you more because we want to live above reproach. So, but God's providing for us as a church, so don't panic with me or about that. But on the other hand, we ought to all be in around that issue. The other area we ought to be all in on, that the wise men certainly were, is it's just amazing how when you're all in and involved, you're more blessed. When you're in and using your gifts and abilities, and so many of you do around here. Some of you give your time and talent and treasure away, and you serve in all sorts of different ways, from the memorial service this week, in all the different ways. I don't even know about how everybody served behind the scenes. It's unbelievable. The church coming together to love on a family and care and remember somebody who lived a great life. And it's just that. Or on Sunday mornings, all the moving parts that happen, from coming early to leaving late to the booth to downstairs. We could use your help in all these categories. Let me just give you a few. Some of you ought to be all in and be more involved in helping downstairs with our kids. You should, just once a month, to give some of your time to love on some kids downstairs. And listen, you don't even have to like kids. You could just I just want to give my time, because I don't know if you know this, but there's just not one category downstairs to serve in. There are multiple. It's not just one age group. There are multiple. It's not just leading a small group over here or nursery over there. You could have a teaching role. There's all sorts of ways. So talk to Lori about that. Some of you need to volunteer in Shepherd's Pantry monthly, which is just a blessing to show up and love people and help in that area. So some of you need to help on Sunday mornings in a whole bunch of different ways, from upstairs in the booth to just all you got to do is hit a button if you're on that side of the booth. Seriously, it's all set up for you, good to go. And just once a month to do that. We're a grace-oriented church, so if something goes wrong up here, it's okay. It's all right. It'll be okay. We're fine. Some of you need to jump into this new men's Bible study that's kicking off this week, because you need to be around some other men and to grow, what Daniel talked about with having your giants come down. And I think it's going to be watching Louis Giglio, who's a great communicator, and you need to be all in and around that. Some of you need to come to Discover class and just hear the background and the vision of the church next week. Some of you just need to plug in and say, you know what, I'm going to be all in here. I don't just want to coast. It is absolutely more blessed to give than it is to receive, and you end up getting double-fold, triple-fold, quadruple-fold back in blessing because you gave yourself away. That's number one. Number two is give yourself to God's words. Give yourself to God's words. Where is that coming from? Verse 12. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So God had spoken to them. They took seriously God's words. So seriously, they changed their directional plans. They probably had their GPS set up to go back the same route they went. They knew how long it was going to take. But they changed it. They looked at Google Maps and said, no, we're going to go a different way because God told us to. And so they changed it. Verse 13, when they had gone, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph. So look at Joseph now. In a dream, get up and take the child and his mother, escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you. Wouldn't that be awesome if you just go, just do what God tells you to do and just wait. till he tells you to do something else. Wouldn't that just be great if like it was that direct for us today? And it really is as we study the Bible. But like here, it's like stay there, stay put until I tell you to move. It'd be awesome. Stay there until I tell you. And for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. So the wise men are warned in a dream, and they go a different direction. Herod wanted to kill Jesus. He didn't want to worship Jesus. He lied to them. And God was in on this. He knew it. He knew that was going down way before any of us did, and way before they did. And so he tells them to go a different direction, and they head home a different direction. Man, we need to be listening to God in the same way they did then. We can do it. I'm going to give you some tips and tactics on how you can do that. So some of you have studied and read the Bible for years. The question is, how much of what you've read and studied are you obeying? That's the question. And that's the one that gets me every single time. I mean, when you've been to school and you've studied the Bible a long time and you've read a lot of stories and you've read below the stories and you read the background of the story, I mean, it's like it puts higher responsibility on living these stories, on living what God tells you to do. And so the more you know, the more responsible you are to actually walk this out. So those of us who've known Jesus for a long time and studied the Bible for a while, man, we ought to be the most loving people on the planet, shouldn't we? We ought to be the most grace-filled people on the planet. We ought to be the people that volunteer first to do stuff. We ought to be the people that give away our stuff first, shouldn't we? Because the closer you are to Jesus, the more you're like, I got to give it all away for kingdom purposes, to advance the kingdom around the world. That's what I got to do. Because, man, that's what Jesus was about, so why wouldn't I do that? There's this little group, not a little group, but they don't, not much said about them in Acts chapter 17, verse 11, but some of you know them by the Bereans. And the Bereans are this group of people where they listen to the Apostle Paul teach. And I love the Bereans because they listened to him, and then they went home in community and they discussed it. And they said, I'm not sure that's true. Is that true? I don't know. And the Bible says this about the Bereans. Now, the Berean Jews were of more noble character than those in Thessalonica. For they received the message. What's the message? Well, the message of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. They received the message from Paul with great eagerness and expectation, and they examined the Scriptures every day to see if what Paul said was true. Listen, friends, some of you, don't take my word for it. How many pastors have you heard say that? Don't believe me. Go home and study it yourself. Go dig it out. Be somebody who doesn't just get a fish for a day, but knows how to fish. So you can go get a bumper crop yourself. Use another metaphor. I mean, you can go study the Bible yourself. You know where to go and how to do that. And so when these guys were listening to Pastor Paul preach, they didn't just take it for granted. They went and studied it. Man, is that true? Let's wrestle with it. Let's pray about that. Let's chew on that together. When is the last time you were in a group of people where you did that? Where you just didn't come and listen to somebody, oh, that's so awesome. Oh, that's new. Didn't know that before. Oh, that's new information. Oh, that was so creative how they did that. I mean, when's the last time you went, man, is this true? Because if this is true, then my life should be changed. The way I live should be changed because this is true. But if it's not true, then toss it out. I'll be the first one to tell you that. Toss it out. But if it is true, man, oh man, we ought to be changing everything. I mean, there's only 3 ways you can study the Bible, really. I'm just going to make it really simple for you. You can either study a book of the Bible, a character of the Bible, or a topic of the Bible. I don't think there's another option. You go a character of the Bible, book of the Bible, topic of the Bible. So you could come at it that way. And I'm going to give you 3 words to write down really fast. Write down these 3 words. Make it really simple for us because studying the Bible is not hard. Look, write that word down. Look, book, took. Look, book, took. They rhyme. They even have two O's in them. All of them. Look, book, took. I mean, easy to remember. So you look at the Bible, you read it. This is for those of you that have been around, inductive Bible studies, what this is. I mean, you study it and you look at it and you read the verses. And then the book is you slow down and go, man, what is that really saying? Who are the characters? What's going on? What's the plot? How's it? And then the most important one, took, is how am I going to apply this to my life? How am I going to apply this to my life? Because so many of us So many of us come to church. I'm sorry I'm stepping on your toes, but I just got to go there. Ready? And we go to church to get information, not be transformed. For information, not transformation. We come to go, man, what's the new thing that's going to be said? What's the new song that's going to be sung? What's the new thing I'm going to learn today? And then leave and go on with the rest of your week. Rather than coming with anticipation of, God, what are you going to do in my heart today? How are you going to change me today? What is going to happen today? I got to be honest with you, not every Sunday, but almost every Sunday when I'm driving here, that's my prayer. Like, Lord, what are you going to do this morning at River Church? How are you going to speak to me this morning? What are you going to do in my life this morning? Help me not to evaluate everything. Pastor saying that. Help me not to evaluate everything. Help me to zero in and do, whatever you want me to do as a result of this morning. Help me to do that. That sounds totally weird for you, maybe because I'm the guy that's up here talking. But my heart is really, man, let me give you some more examples. Do you come in on Sunday mornings anticipating what God's going to do in your own life? Like, Lord, change my heart from being bitter to loving more people. Change my heart from pride to humility. Change my heart from holding on to stuff in my heart to giving it away. Change my heart to worship you more rather than worshiping the world more. Help me to have the mind of Christ that Paul talks about in the New Testament. Help me to, as I've already said, to not evaluate as much and come just to worship you and learn from you this morning. Help me to do that. And I guarantee if you come in with that mindset on Sunday mornings and beyond, your life is going to change radically. Finally, number 3 is give yourself to God's plan. Give yourself to God's plan. It gets really, really good now. Hold on to your seatbelts. Watch this, verse 14. So he got up and took the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt. So God directed Mary and Joseph to take toddler Jesus and get out of Dodge, to leave Bethlehem and head towards Egypt, to head that direction. And now I did a little bit of research and couldn't fully figure it out because of the routes and all this kind of thing. But if they traveled 100 miles from Bethlehem to clearly an Egyptian border, they would be out of the jurisdiction of Herod. And so at the bare minimum, they went 100 miles by foot in the night. So no doubt God's protection was around them through that whole process. It would have taken them a while to get there. But if they really went far, up to another 100 miles, 200 miles total, they would have gotten to the Nile River. They would have gotten to places where there were more Jews and more community around that. I mean, think about this from Joseph's perspective. Had a carpentry business, might have been going pretty well. He's setting it up. He's saving some money to get married to this girl. Everything gets flipped upside down. And now God shows up in dreams, and his whole world is rocked, but he's still a carpenter. And so can you imagine him like he just didn't, he obeyed God radically. I'm getting up and leaving everything because you said so, God. I mean, it was miraculous, this whole thing. And Mary, our stories are now lining up because you have appeared to us and all this kind of thing. But he obeyed immediately, the Bible says. And so they pick up and they go. And now they have some resources because the wise men had given them some gifts. And so now they're on their way. And I did a little research this week. It was kind of fun. Alexandria, which was obviously a city in Egypt, right on the coast of the Mediterranean, that area of the world during this time period would have had 300,000 people there. And historians are saying 1/4 to 2/3 of the population were Jews. So if I'm Mary and Joseph, I'm heading probably towards my like people. So they probably could have ended up over there with that population, and then I dug a little bit deeper. They would have found a synagogue. They would have worshiped there. They would have done everything that a good Jewish family would have done, and they would have settled in for who knows how long until God tells them to go home. And so no doubt Joseph would have found other carpenters to relate to and to build into, and this is the stuff we hardly ever talk about. What were they doing in Egypt? Well, they were settling into community. And so imagine how fast Mary and Joseph grew spiritually. Imagine how fast they obeyed immediately and they left, and they're just like, okay, God, when's it going to be? When's it going to be? Can you imagine the anticipation every single day? Is Herod going to die yet? Is Herod going to die yet? Is Herod going to die yet? When are we going to get to go home? We want to go home. I mean, all of these things, all the newness and the bonding they would have had as a family. and just how fast they would have grown spiritually. And I was thinking about how fast we grow spiritually if we want to in certain categories in our lives. And, when you have your first job, you're put in a position where you can crash and burn or you can grow. You can grow in a whole lot of different ways. Or you're on a sports team. You can grow in a whole lot of different ways. Or you get your license to drive. Well, that can go really, really well. Or there can be a learning curve. But you can grow in responsibility pretty fast. You go off to college, clearly. And as soon as you get married, all of a sudden now it's not about you. You die to yourself to the extreme. I mean, if you want your marriage to go well, that's what you're doing. You're dying to yourself every single day. And if you know Jesus and you're put in that category, you grow so fast. It's like this incubator of spiritual growth when you're married and you both love Jesus. It's like dying to yourself. It's like, wow, I had no idea I had so much pride in my life and selfishness until I get married. Boom, it explodes. And then you have a child, and it's really not about you then. And then all of a sudden you get paying for a mortgage, and you have another child, and you're going man to man. If you have more than that, zone. I mean, it's unbelievable how everything changes when that happens. And I just love Joseph because Joseph, in Matthew's story, obeys immediately 3 times over the course of this whole story. 3 times it says he obeyed immediately, did whatever the Lord told him to do. Boom, I'm doing it. Whatever you tell me to do, I'm doing it. I mean, you'd say, well, it is miraculous. It's crazy. This is the Messiah being born. It's kind of on steroids, if you will. But man, Joseph just obeyed immediately, whatever it is. And you've probably learned by now that when you make plans, God seems to have a sense of humor and he changes them. Doesn't he? Like you set out this way, you set out this course, you think it's this way, and God seems to go, no, I really want you to go over here. Why? Because he wants you to get as close to Jesus as you possibly can. This whole story of the wise men coming and worshiping, giving gifts to Mary and Joseph and Jesus and heading to Egypt, man, it just made me think about in my own life, and maybe you reflect on this too now, man, are you giving God fully your whole life? You giving him everything? Because that's what he wants. Do this with me if you would, and we've done this before in the past, but just take your hands and hold them out like that. And if there's a bit of a physical metaphor for this that maybe you've done before, seen before, and we've done it here before, it's one thing to say, God, here I am. Do whatever you want to do. But you and I both know that when you have your hands like this, you can still be holding on to things, can't you? But what God's really saying is like, yes, be to have that posture, but then get it? I don't want to hold on to anything. I want to give as hard as it can be sometimes to give everything. Like really everything. I kind of want to hold on to something. Rather than, no, I want to release it all to you, Lord. I think that's why sometimes in worship we do this, because it's like this posture of like, all you, Lord. And in a few minutes, Jesus asked us to participate in communion. And I want to invite those that are going to help serve to come on forward. But even when we participate in communion, in the way we do it here, if you've been here for a while, is you get to come forward and to steer traffic. If you come on this side and come out that side, it kind of helps. But we serve it up here because you're actually having to move. And I think there's something to that. You have to make a decision. Man, I want to remember Jesus. I want to reflect on his life, death, and resurrection. I want to move physically. And think as I'm coming, man, what does this represent? And man, I want to come out the other end, so to speak, and worship you even more, Jesus. And man, it's unbelievable that he would die on a cross for the forgiveness of sins and rise on the 3rd day for you and for me. And it would all start back there when an escape to Egypt to come back at the right timing and God's timing, and all prophecy fulfilled. It's unbelievable. And that's what Jesus said, hey, would you do this in remembrance of me? Would you just every now and then, for us it's monthly, remember what I did for you. I broke my body for you on the cross. I shed my blood for you so you could have a relationship with God and know that you're going to go to heaven someday. For sure.
Because you can know that you know that you know that you're saved, right? You knew that, right? You don't have to second guess that. You know, I know Jesus. If you know Jesus, you're welcome to come, whether you're a member of this church or not. This is an open table for you to come. If you don't know Jesus, we politely ask for you, don't celebrate this if you don't know Jesus. But here's the good news. You can give your life to Jesus right now. Father, we're so grateful. Verse 15 says, for he stayed until the death of Herod, so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, out of Egypt I call my son, which is a direct reference back to the Passover meal that the Jews would have known. In a weird kind of way, Matthew sort of says, Jesus is coming. He's coming out of these people, out of this lineage, to be the Messiah, to be the deliverer, the rescuer of sins. So, Father, we remember you through communion, through the Lord's Supper, through what you did at Passover. And this is a greater Passover than back there in Exodus. This is so much greater. This is Jesus fulfilling the Passover meal as the perfect lamb would be sacrificed. So we remember that now. We celebrate it now. And we're so grateful. And the bottom line, give yourself fully to knowing Jesus, and it'll be the best decision you've ever made. So help us to re-up on that decision even as we participate in communion today. In Jesus' name.